All right, so since we're here, what do you guys think about it? I'll go first, and personally, I'm just glad that there's more of an opportunity for these teams to prove themselves on the field, as opposed to saying, "Well, we should have been blah blah blah. We should have had a chance." Blah blah blah. Okay, you have a chance. Prove yourself now, right? And at least you have a chance to play your way there instead of just griping about it. What shoulda, woulda, coulda happened. I don't know, Jesse. What do you think?
I agree. I think it opens up the competition for those that have been griping in years past. I'm looking at you, UCF. But I think I'm just gonna have to take off work. I'm just gonna have to just watch. There's so much football to see. It's gonna be like March Madness, and I just need to like sit with TVs. But it will be interesting to see. I expected them to go to 8. I didn't expect them to just jump to 12. So
right,
that was a surprise to me.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think?
I'm all for it. Who's going to say no to more football? Because when you think about what the CFP, like, let me pull up the CFP rankings, because I did this the other day and it was quite the little
as to who would play whom.
It was an interesting
right
thing.
Now.
So last year. Oh wait, no, that's not right. Hold that thought. I'm gonna find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
And I was gonna say that it's got the whole bye system now, where your top 4 teams, right, get a first round bye.
Yeah. So what you would have had last year is you would have had Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan would have got a first round bye, and then you would have had matchups like Clemson and Florida. You would have had Texas A&M and Oklahoma State. You would have had Texas. Oh no, I'm sorry. You would have had Oklahoma and USC. Like, you would have had some pretty marquee matchups. And think of the ticket sales. Think of the TV rights. Think of the just the ridiculous nature of those matchups. Like, and granted, I saw a bunch of arguments that were made that it cheapens the regular season and it makes things not mean as much, because then you can just limp into it. No, that's not the case. It's fine.
You still have to be in position to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, you still have to have quality wins to get in the top 15. And also there's an argument to be made that there is less contention between 12 and 13 than there is between 5 and 4. So
right,
if somebody gets frozen out and you're the 13th team and you're like, well, okay, well, we didn't do it, we didn't get there. But if you're the 4th,
everyone will live for that, like, we came in at 12 and we won a natty story.
And when it happens, it's going to be a huge story. It's going to be a huge story when that happens. And the other part of this that connects to the NFL, now you're not going to have kids sitting out of the playoffs or bowl games.
Yeah.
Because this is just another rep for them to get eyes on.
Right.
Especially for that team that's, comes in as a 10 seed in the tournament and ends up putting up big numbers going into the championship game.
That's a perfect.
There's literally no problem with this other than you're playing 3 extra games.
Well, are you? Because they may just take some of the bowl games and turn them into playoff games.
Well, I still say they need to go back to having one non-conference game, tune-up game at the beginning of the year, and then regular conference schedule for the rest of the season. You don't need 14 dadgum conference cupcake. I never have understood why we got away from that. That's the way it used to be, where you'd play a little tune-up FCS team in your first week, and then you start SEC playing week 2. But we don't do that anymore.
Well, that's a perfect point.
Where we only played each other.
And we're paying. And those schools are paying a crap ton of money to those smaller schools. And I know that's beneficial for them, and that's, the trickle-down economics of college football. But I think we'd be better suited if we played the games we were supposed to play in conference, maybe one tune-up game at the beginning of the year, and then go to the CFP. And if you don't get there, you don't get there.
Right. All right. Well, that's a good conversation. Good stuff. Obviously, we'll be talking about that a lot in the next few weeks and years. I forget, when does that go into effect? It was supposed to be.
I think they told the commissioners of the conferences they wanted it by 2024.
Yeah. It was okay. So 2026, and they were urging commissioners to implement it as soon as 2024. Yeah. So
which I have a hard time imagining anybody's going to shuffle their feet on that. Well, at least the big conferences. I can imagine the Pac-12 is probably like, we don't want to do this. Well, too bad, sweetheart. Get in the
I don't know why they
Long shot.
wouldn't, because that's maybe the only way that they get in the playoff now.
Absolutely.
Well, that's true.
So
Absolutely.
How crazy would it be? Okay, let me set the stage for you. Let's get like Southern Cal in there. All right. They limp through their conference schedule. They win their conference. They get to like an 8 seed, and then they win the whole damn thing.
yeah, like you
How
said, Jess,
nuts would that be?
that's the kind of stories you're going to see.
That's what you want. I mean, people love that in basketball. It's what people want in March
The Cinderella
Madness.
story.
And that's what you get in the NFL too, with wild cards winning the wild. You limp into the playoff, and then you win the Super Bowl. Like, everybody loves that story.
Oh yeah, I mean, in baseball, it's like everybody has it, but college football.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
now we're getting it.
As Mike Leach once said, every small town can figure out how to do a softball tournament and do that bracket, but college football can't seem to figure that out. So
Well, they're figuring it out finally. It only took them 130 years to do.
yeah, right.
Someone finally added up the numbers for them of how much money they'd make, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, and so that's an argument I've heard is about, okay, if they're taking away bowl games, they're going to lose money. But it's the exact opposite. These games mean so much more. I think they'll actually make more money. To your point, Matt, they were talking about the players who typically sit out. You got your 5th, 6th, and on ranked teams who have quality players on their teams who are going to sit out the bowl game because they don't want to get hurt.
And can you blame them for that?
I don't. Yeah, exactly. And now those players are going to play because the games actually matter, and they still have
sponsors will pay more money to have their name on that game than they would a regular bowl game. So the price tag is going to go up. The advertising price tag to advertise during the broadcast of those games is going to go up. And then you have more people that are likely going to travel to whatever said city. And there's going to be a lot of fanfare around the week leading up to whatever these playoff games are. The economic impact that these games will have on the cities in which they're hosted is going to be much more than it would for a regular bowl game. And those games already have a huge economic impact on those towns. So there's so much more money to be made here, just because to take it from the conference, it just means more.
Yeah, I can see it now that the CFP board of directors is looking around at those games like, this is actually a pretty good idea. Why didn't we do this before?
It's like they got Michael Scott running the CFP. We can make how much money? One thing I wanted to also mention too is I've lost my train of thought. I thought about Michael Scott. Now I've lost.
That's what you wanted to mention. So yeah,
no
playoff games, else. CFP, expanding the playoff. This is a good idea.
Oh, I remember what it was now. It needs to be a requirement in whatever document they use to draw this all up. You cannot play this game at a neutral site. Like those playoff games have to be played in a home stadium.
Okay.
I think they have to be.
Now that might be the deal breaker there, because those stadiums love that.
I know they do, but let's be honest here. It's gonna be just medical, like so bare bones, playing a game at the George Dome, or not George Dome. George Dome has existed in 10 years. Playing a game at an NFL stadium when you could be playing that game at home in your own stadium. There's a different feeling to a game in a college stadium.
Oh, no doubt. And I have no disagreement there, but I can tell you right now, because of money and those stadiums and what they have invested.
Oh, I know.
That's not going to happen.
And
also,
I get it. To build a brand new dome so that they can host stuff like this and the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Wait,
and
who's building a new dome?
Chicago. They just announced their plans today for what it's going to be in Arlington Heights, which is just slightly outside of the city, but it would be a dome, and it's like a whole entertainment complex out there.
But that's part of the appeal of Chicago. It's supposed to be like cold and windy, and
I know. Well, and
that's like
supposed to be
like if they try to put a dome on Lambeau Field, like
right.
What?
It's supposed to also be in Chicago, which like Arlington Heights is like
it's a suburb.
But I digress. But I think I agree. I'd love to have it. Gosh, a playoff game in Bryant
would
Denny
be cool.
Stadium. It would
That would
be
be crazy.
insanity.
That would be nuts.
And
That'd be
that's
so
even
nuts.
more incentive for the records that you were talking about, Matt, because you want that home field advantage, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And can you imagine, like, a regular college football game is going to be rocking, but imagine the absolute mayhem of
A
it
playoff.
being for a spot in the national championship game.
I think that's why they don't do it. It's because of all of the mayhem.
And you know what? You may see mustard bottles go flying on the field if
It would be absolutely just wild. And we just got alcohol in Bryant Denny Stadium. They're not going to.
You know what? Now that you mention it, that might not be such a good idea.
Yeah.